So this video is going to show you how to make a jambalaya. This is actually a chicken jambalaya that I'm making today, but you could actually use corn if you wanted to instead, or you could substitute another meat or even sausages if you wanted to. So the first thing you need to do is get your water up to boiling point. So once your water, as you can see there, is up to boiling point, you're going to actually very carefully put your rice into it. Now you can at this stage just boil up your rice, or you can, which is what I'm going to do, put your turmeric in with the water, which will actually then turn the rice yellow as it's actually cooking. So I'm just going to put about a teaspoon of rice into there, and that will actually then colour the rice as it cooks. Now while your rice is cooking, you can actually start to prepare some of your other ingredients, or get some of your other ingredients ready. So with your pepper, just chop the top off, trying not to take too much of the pepper off, and you can then just pull out the inside of the pepper, making sure that you've got all of the seeds. Keep that over to the side of your chopping board so that you don't accidentally get some of that in there. Now the easiest way to chop your pepper is to actually push it together with your thumb and your finger, and then you can actually slice down and get nice slim pieces. By actually pushing it together, it just makes it firmer so that it's actually easier to cut. So once you've got all your rings of pepper, you can then just cut the rings up into smaller pieces. If you did want to keep them as long strips, that would be fine as well. We actually prefer to have the pepper cut up as pieces, obviously making sure that you're watching your fingers. Now the next thing that you can actually do while you're waiting for your rice to cook, if you collect up some boiling water. Now obviously I'm not going to put my turmeric in here because I've already used that, but I'm going to actually put about a teaspoon of paprika into there. And I'm also going to add my stock cube. Now something you may not have realised, and I didn't actually realise this until a couple of years ago, stock cubes are actually designed so that you can actually crush them up in the packaging. So if you actually release the ends of the stock cube, and then while it is all still sealed up, you can actually start to break it. Or in the case of this one, that's not going to happen because the stock cube is too hard. But if you did have a soft enough stock cube, it would actually, as you can see in there, start to crumble in the packaging, which makes it a lot easier. Typically this one's not going to work. Okay, we got some bits there, so we will need to actually revert back to doing that by hand. But as long as it's a nice soft stock cube, it will actually do in the packaging for you, which is a lot easier and a lot less messy. So once you've added the stock cube and the paprika into there, just actually give it a stir around to make sure that it's all dissolved. Obviously that's going to take a little bit more time if you didn't manage to get it too powdery, but it's just to make sure that everything is well mixed in. And then at this stage you're really just waiting for your rice to be cooked. So if we go back to the rice, the best way to tell if your rice is cooked is to lift some out on the spatula. Obviously let it cool down first, don't go touching it straight away, otherwise you're going to burn your fingers. Then if you take a piece and squeeze it between your thumb and your finger, then it should be nice and soft. If it's not soft, it needs a little bit longer. So the rice was cooked, so I've just actually taken a colander and drained the rice into the colander, so it's ready for me to actually use now for my jambalaya. So into my pan, I need to just add a small amount of oil to make sure that the chicken doesn't actually stick. What we're actually going to do then is add the chicken directly to the pan. That actually saves running the risk of any cross-contamination. I certainly wouldn't want you chopping up your chicken and actually then putting it into the container that you're going to take your jambalaya home in. So we're going to cut the chicken directly up into the saucepan. Now if you've got whole breasts of chicken, I've actually got smaller pieces here. If you've got a whole breast of chicken, it works exactly the same way, but you just obviously have a larger piece of chicken to hold. So the easiest way again to do this, to make sure, as I said, that we're not running the risk of contaminating other ingredients, I found the easiest way to do this is actually just to use a pair of scissors. And in school we've actually got a set of scissors that we keep just for using with food, and then you can actually just cut the chicken up and pop it into your pan. As I said, certainly in all the years I've been teaching cooking to pupils, I found that the easiest way to do it. Now, if you're doing this at home, you can actually do this stage while your rice is cooking. You don't actually need to wait for the ring to be empty. In school, we haven't got enough rings for everybody to have 2 rings on use at the same time. So we need to do it in stages. Whereas if you're doing this at home while your rice is cooking, you can actually be getting your chicken done, which means that it's going to be ready for you to eat that bit quicker. So we want to put this onto a medium heat. We don't want it to go too fast, but obviously we also don't want it to take too long to start actually cooking off. Now, the way that you're going to tell that your chicken is cooked is that it should be nice and sealed on the outside. So it should be a nice white colour. There shouldn't be any pink bits left. And if we cut through a piece of the chicken, I would advise that we use one of the bigger pieces of chicken. We can actually break through it with the spatula, and that will show that we've actually cooked it right the way through. It's very important that you don't just do it at this stage and wait for it all to actually be white on the outside, because it could actually still be raw on the inside. So the chicken is gone white on the outside. So if we just break through a piece of the chicken, if you actually look there, you can see that it's still actually very pink on the outside. On the inside even, sorry. So we need to keep cooking that. That's why it's really important that you don't just see what it looks like on the outside and go from there. It's really important to make sure that you actually check the inside of it as well. So that's going to be a couple more minutes at least cooking off. So once you can actually break through the chicken and you can see there the inside of it is completely white, then you know that your chicken is done and you can move on to the next stage. So what you're going to do now, very carefully, is add your rice to the pan. And the fact that this is a jambalaya dish means that it usually is nice and sticky. So we're going to actually add now the stock which we prepared earlier to actually moisten the whole dish off. And what we want to do then is actually cook this through until most of the water, but not all of it, because as I said we want it to be a moist dish, is actually cook that off until most of the liquid is actually evaporated. So once the liquid has evaporated off, or as you can see in here, thickened so that it's more of a sort of paste on there, then your jambalaya is cooked, and you can either pop it into your container if you're taking it home, or if you're making this at home, you can obviously pop it onto a plate and it's ready to eat.